How do you deal with the nerves?
Oh, smoking loads of cigs. I spoke to one of my friends about it because I was like, why do I get so nervous? And they were just like, it's just because you care. So I'm kind of glad that that's not gone away yet.
We're recording now, Joe. Classic question, are we recording?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so I guess a good place to start, Emily, is this is a difficult question to start with. Can you remember a specific moment or show or inspiration that made you think you'd want to go into radio?
I think there's quite a few. So I don't know how many people know this, but I used to swim a lot. So I used to swim 8 times a week. So I'd get up at like 4:30 in the morning and go swimming at like 7:30. It was gross.
Wow.
But my kind of main memories of radio are kind of like, because it was where I used to swim was quite far away from where I lived. So in the mornings at like 4:30 in the morning, we'd just have Radio 1 on in the background as we were like going to get ready and driving over to get to where we were swimming. And it's just kind of like been a constant, really. Like I don't really remember a time where I've kind of like not listened to the radio. But I think if there's like one moment where I kind of realised that I wanted to do radio was when I think me and my dad were driving somewhere and we had Radio 1 on, and I think Hugh Stevens must have been like covering someone on Radio 1 daytime, and he played a Pulled Apart by Horses tune, and I just really loved it. And I think that kind of like kick-started my love for music and wanting to like get into to music radio, I guess.
That's amazing. That's really good.
Were there other DJs? Were there like inspirational DJs out there for you? Like people that you sort of picked up from over the years?
I really, really loved Jen Long. Do you remember her?
Yeah, Janice Long, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I watched some Reading and Leeds coverage and she was hosting some of it, and I was like, she's cool. I want to be like her.
Like the 80s and the early 90s, I think before was it Edith Bowman and who's the other one? Joe Wiley. Before they sort of started hosting from Glastonbury, it was always John Peel and it was always Janice Long. And they were like the two, for years.
Yeah.
Janice was a big inspirational figure and still going strong, I believe.
Yeah, I think probably Fern Cotton as well. I remember when she used to do the live lounge. I really liked her as well. So yeah, I guess they're the kind of main ones really, all the like music radio presenters, I think.
The ones that are in it for the music more than anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What are you doing, Dan? Who's next? You got a question?
Joe next. Yeah, he was blank facing me. I was going to say, Joe, you're next. But,
well, I was expecting some sort of prompt, but it wasn't coming.
Joe, that's interesting, Emily. Joe, I believe you have a question next.
Oh, funny you should say that, Dan. Hi, Emily. I was just going to ask, can you remember when you presented your first introducing show? How did that feel, and how did the nerves of that compare to when you did your first one on Radio 1 recently?
Yeah, so the first introducing show, that will have been like last January. I was quite nervous because I hadn't really done anything live for a really, really long time. I can't really remember it. I feel like it was all a bit of a blur. But it was like our top picks for 2020, which like looking back now is just, I don't know, considering everything that happened last year, it all feels a bit kind of like, yeah, I think the whole Radio 1 stuff, I really enjoyed it, and I wasn't as nervous as I thought I would be. And I think that's kind of just down to the...
How do you deal with the nerves?
Oh, smoking loads of cigs. Yeah, doing that, or just kind of, I try and go for like a walk before I go on air, just like round the block. Yeah. And there's this tune by an artist called Laura, called Get Creative, which I actually heard through kind of presenting the Radio 1 show. And it's just a banger. So I put that on quite a lot now before I go on air to kind of get like motivated and stuff. Yeah, but it is like nerve wracking. I had a week off a couple of weeks ago, and it was only like 1 week off, but because I hadn't done anything for a week, I got super nervous again. So it doesn't really go away. You just kind of learn.
It's a good thing to have some nerves.
Yeah, like I think I spoke to one of my friends about it, because I was like, why do I get so nervous? And they were just like, it's just because you care. So I'm kind of glad that that's not gone away yet. I imagine Alan will have said the same.
He did actually, yeah. He did say that, you know, he still gets nervous and wants to do a good job. So yeah, that's a really good point, that you care, and that's why that's why it comes across so well, and obviously why you still worry a little bit. But that's a good thing. You've had a mad transition, really, haven't you? I guess when I didn't realise it was 2020 that you were doing your introducing show, and then you had to obviously do radio that was, what was it, like 4 hours of not doing introducing in the middle of a pandemic, and then going into Radio 1 at the start, well, back end of last year into the start of this year. It's a mad transition for 1 year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I forget that I've only really been doing it for a little while, because I've obviously worked with the introducing teams for about 5 years now. But yeah, last year it was I'd basically been doing the introducing show in West Yorkshire for about 3 months before I got a call being like, no, you're not actually doing that anymore. You're just doing this 4-hour show about COVID. And it was fine. Like, you know.
What was the worst track that you had to play during that period? Where
the
you
worst track.
You played it, and you had to like tell the audience how great a song it was, but deep down you were like, oh, struggling. What was the one?
Do you know what? I can't remember what it was called, but it was by a band called Texas.
Yeah.
I can't. It was like not the one that everyone knows. It was a different one. It was rubbish. I think I texted the editor afterwards, and I was like, "What's this about?" Like, I don't get it. But yeah, it was very weird.
Did you know the band Texas before? Like,
not really. No.
This is really weird, because I was talking to my wife about this last night. That people now, like Texas, were a massive band in the 90s, like a huge band in the 90s. But people now speak about the 90s like we did in the 90s, speaking about the 60s. And that's really hard for someone of my age to get my head around, because the 60s was so long ago. And in the 90s, we used to think about the 60s like, 30 years before. But now in 2020, you talk about the 90s, like bands like Texas, and like they were massive. It was, I wouldn't say they were as big as Beatles or Rolling Stones, but they were a big band in the 90s. And it's just weird hearing people's perspective of 30 years ago, or like bands from then.
Yeah. I didn't really know who they were, to be honest. I was quite confused. There's been a couple of times actually when I've been like covering on local radio, and it's not been an introducing show, and there's been an artist or a band in the running order, and I've said the title as if that's the name of the artist, because I just don't know. It's quite bad really for a music radio presenter, but can't know everything, can you?
No, you do it really, really well. Does that lead to me then, Dan?
It sure does, mate.
So the question the boys have asked me to ask you, and it's a great one as well, is what makes a good radio DJ? What makes a good presenter for BBC Introducing?
That's a tricky one, because I think everyone's kind of unique to, you have to be your own kind of like personality, don't you? but I think in terms of like BBC introducing, I think you've kind of got to have a broad musical taste, or an open mind, really. You kind of, I think that's one thing I've learned over the past like 5 years of working with introducing, is you've got to just have a passion for music and not have it being just a certain type of genre. And that's good because it just allows you to experience more music and, you know, just enjoy all of it. I think one of the main things for me that always sticks out with me from when I first started working with Alan Raw at Introducing, he kind of always used to say, like, we're the champions. Like, it's not about us, it's about, you know, the artists, and we wouldn't really be anything without the artists. So I think having that kind of like that attitude towards it is the best thing with BBC introducing, because otherwise it's just all kind of becomes about ego and not really about the thing that it should be about, which is the music. So yeah, I'd say that I don't really know the nuts and bolts of radio, really. Like, I didn't study it, I just kind of got into it, and that's, yeah, I just kind of learned on the job. And I think Alan did as well. I think Alan had a similar kind of, you know, he just got kind of chucked in with it. So yeah, like technically I have no idea, but I think the ethos and the kind of personality around music and how you feel about it is how you become a good radio presenter, I think.
Definitely. I mean, leads on nicely to the second part of the question the boys have asked me to ask is, so as well as being what makes a good DJ, what are the big pluses of working with BBC Introducing? What are the best things about working with BBC Introducing?
I think there's so much. Like, I was walking into work on Saturday and I was listening to some of the artists that we've been supporting on my show over the past year, and I just kind of felt really grateful to be able to be in the position that I am, to just discover new artists all the time. Like, that's amazing. It can be tricky some weeks, because some weeks you know might not find the next big thing, but there's that element that I just, you know, you can't really take that for granted, I don't think, otherwise you shouldn't be doing it. I think obviously festivals are great, like working with festivals, but I think the main thing is kind of watching an artist grow as well. Like, there are loads of artists that we've supported on Introducing in West Yorkshire and Introducing in Humberside that we've seen go from kind of nothing to massive in, you know, sometimes it's in the space of 6 months, sometimes it's over the course of like 5 years, but watching that journey and being able to be a part of it, no matter kind of like how big or small, is really kind of like heartwarming. And yeah, it's nice to be a small part of it, and to, you know, I think I described, someone asked me to try and describe like my job and stuff. I can't really remember what it was, but I think it was for Centric, and we're basically just glorified fangirls. So to see like artists that we've supported go on to, you know, sell out shows is just really special, I think.
I think that's the best part of what we do, really, isn't it? Is seeing these this prodigious talent sort of go on this journey, and, you know, however small our part is, we can enjoy that journey with them. And yeah, I've seen a few of them over the years, and I think being a good DJ, or, you know, working with BBC Introducing, it's just about having that passion, really, for sort of providing platforms, you know, for artists, emerging artists, and giving them that confidence to go on to succeed, and sort of champion them is a really great honour, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. Like, I mean, one artist that springs to mind, which I imagine you'll have seen as well, kind of progress, is Bedroom. Like, seeing how well they're doing is great. I remember booking them to play a show for me at a Porto a few years ago, and like no one was there really, but they're amazing. and now, you know, what, they top rated album or something by Rough Trade last year. Like, it's just really nice. And yeah, there's so many artists that have come through, and it's just really great to see. So
have you heard of the bands Low Hummer and Fever?
of course I have.
Oh,
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually talked about Low Hummer on this Centric chat that's going out at some point as well. I did mention Labette Blooms though, so I'm sorry about that. But
That's fine. Probably for the best.
That's what I mean. Like, you know, going on that journey with bands and that, seeing what Dan and Joe's doing with their respective bands, and you talking about Bedroom and bands like that, just seeing them from, like, you know, from sowing the seed in their first, you know, few gigs where there was like one man and his dog watching them in a bar, and to seeing them, like, you know, take the stage at some of these big festivals, big audiences, it gives you great pleasure. There's no doubt about that, and I love that.
yeah, absolutely. It's just a shame, I think, at the minute that we've not been able to see that, but I'm hoping that means, you know, whenever things do happen again, that it will be even better. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hopefully people will value live music a lot more now, won't they?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I think it's my turn for a question, Emily. I just want to say, though, probably edit this bit out. Mac is here of his own free will. We've had a few weeks now where he goes, the boys have asked me to ask this question. He is like, we haven't like locked him in that room or anything. He's like, he enjoys these, I promise. Dirty Mac. So,
I get sent the messages though. I get to send the questions, don't I?
yeah, we're both right. I think just a side tracking off my question a little bit, but part of what you and Mac was speaking about of you know, watching that band's journey, I think you're a very personable person, Emily, just like Alan is. So whenever you do well, I feel like the whole community wants you to do well, if that makes sense as well. I think that's what makes a really good DJ for me, is you end up being interested in them as a person and want them to do really well. So listening to you on Radio 1 doing the introducing show, which is something I listen to religiously to find new music, was like probably one of my highlights of the year. Honestly, it was just great to listen to you. You know, it was really good.
Thank you.
What do you what hooks you we asked Alan this, what hooks you in a song or immediately grabs you, and what engages you when you listen to tracks in the uploader?
I don't really know, to be honest. It's kind of, I think it depends on every artist, because obviously it's different for each kind of genre, isn't it? I think for me, good production goes a long way, which is, you know, kind of sometimes hard to find in the uploader, because, you know, people are starting from scratch, but that's something that I notice pretty much straight away. Trying to think. Something that's kind of, if you hear something that's not necessarily been done before, that always kind of grabs my attention. Lyrically, if it's good, it's tricky because it is just kind of like, it depends what kind of mood you're in as well. Like, I try and listen to things at different points on different days to try and make sure that I'm not just, because sometimes if you listen to the uploader when you're in such a good mood and you're just getting really depressing songs that doesn't quite fit your mood, then I think it can kind of damage the kind of upload, if that makes sense. Like, you know, if I want to be listening to something like Bad Boy Chiller Crew and then I hear like a really sad singer-songwriter, it's not gonna have the same impact. But I think ultimately it does just come down to whether you think there's like some potential there, because I think that's the main thing with introducing as well. It's not, although I'm saying it's good to have, you know, good production and all of that, it's all about noticing the potential. And there's been a few times where I've listened to artists that maybe haven't been there in terms of production, but I've spoken to some producers I know in Leeds, or emailed the artists and kind of said that I think you should work with this person, or you should check out who they've worked with before. And that's kind of the journey. But the main thing I do listen out for is if it's interesting, and, you know, if I want to put that on my show and I feel confident in that being a really good song. Yeah, it just depends, I think. I think everyone's different.
Do you want me to lead you in, Joe? You can...
If you want. Yeah.
That links in really well, Joe. I reckon. With it doesn't at all, actually. It doesn't link in. A very separate question here from Joe Gray, my friend Joe.
Thank you. So you've worked on several Humber Street sessions over the last few years. I was just wondering if there's any particular highlights of working on the introducing stage.
There's quite a few. Humber Street Sesh, genuinely, and I'm not saying this because like you'll work on it, but it is probably my favourite festival to go to, because the sense of community at Humber Street Sesh is just, I just love it. It's just so nice to be a part of it, and it's always a good excuse for me to see all of my friends in Hull as well, which is nice. I think probably one of my favourite memories of Humber Street Sesh, unfortunately, I think is the same answer as Alan's, which is when Chedu Araka played the BBC introducing stage a few years back. Just because I've never seen that much kind of energy for a local show, and it just completely blew me away. I knew Chedu Araka at the time, like I knew his music, but I didn't know him that well. And I just remember having like goosebumps the whole way through, and just feeling quite emotional. I'm trying to think who else. I really enjoyed it when, I think it will have been the last time I went to Humber Street Sesh, you know, when you had the or was it the time before? The big festival tent on the other side. Yeah, that's it. I think Team Picture played. That was really special.
2000. No.
Yeah, I can't. And also, I'm pretty sure I met up with Joe from the Hubbards. He's not in the Hubbards. He's just Joe Hubbard, isn't he? I met up with him and all of my friends from Leeds to watch the Hubbards do the main stage, the headline set a couple of years ago. That was really fun. But yeah, I love everything about it. It's just such a good festival, and me and Katie always have a really fun time working together. So it's just great.
Very nice. I think, Mark, you've got the last question, I believe.
Humber Street Sesh, eh? If we get on to that another time, I think. So my last question. Please remind everyone, Emily, as to why people should use the BBC introducing uploader.
Well, I mean, obviously there's the fact that you can get your tune played on the radio, and if we like it, we can forward it on to Radio 1, 6 Music, Asia Network, 1 Extra, all of that. But I think my main thing with BBC introducing, which I don't know if people really shout about enough, is that BBC introducing as a platform is not just about getting played on Radio 1 or 1 Extra. Obviously, we want that to happen. You know, we push for that all the time, but I think for me it's kind of taking awareness of the fact that BBC introducing is kind of like, it's not the central point of the local music scene, but we know everyone in the local music scene. We know all the promoters, we know all the labels, we know all the kind of like DIY promoters and stuff, and we've generally got quite a good eye on everything that's going on. And we all talk to these promoters, you know, whether we've got a stage at their festival or what, like they listen to us and they ask us things. They ask us to recommend artists all the time. So, and that's kind of like where you build yourself as an artist, is locally. So although there is the whole shiny thing of getting played on Radio 1 and 1Extra, there is the local element as well, which I think is the most important part of it, really. And we are just champions of music. Like, we have absolutely nothing to gain from you guys doing well. We just want you to, and we want to hear all the music and soak it all in, you know.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
It's okay.
I might just chuck a curveball question in, if that's okay.
Okay.
So, what advice would you give to someone who would want to get into radio, whether it's via introducing or just generally would like to, you know, put their own show together? Yeah, what would your advice be?
So the way I got into it was through hospital radio. I volunteered at a local hospital radio station for about 3 years before I moved to Leeds. And I guess just kind of doing something like that, like getting yourself involved in radio just because you want to do it, and just getting as much experience as you possibly can. If you're at university, do some student radio. I hear that's really fun, and I really regret not going to uni just because I feel like that would have been loads of fun. Just kind of immersing yourself in it. I also did like loads of writing for music websites and stuff. So if it's music journalism you want to get into, just kind of throw yourself into all of it. But yeah, just kind of see where you can maybe get involved in like a community radio station and just kind of work from there. I think showing that you're keen to work in radio goes a really, really long way. So that'd be my advice.
That's great advice. Well, happy with that. Glad I asked that. I was gonna say to Mac, that community element's really important, and you've sent us artists, or you sent me artists, and there was a time when we were busy putting gigs on, and I would sometimes miss that message and then come back to an artist and then go back to our message and then go, yeah, Emily definitely pointed me in the right direction 6 months ago. One being Downtown Coyote, I think you'd sent us and been like, you need to listen to this guy, and then I was like, yeah, cool, man. And then like 6 months went by and I was like, this sounds great. And then was like, I found something. And I was like, no, I haven't. Emily found it ages ago. So, but that sense of community is like real important. And also just your enthusiasm in general is just really good, because obviously it's been such a difficult time, and obviously like it's been really tricky where like self-employed people at the end of the day. So to hear someone who's passionate about doing music because they love music gives me inspiration to keep going, and the reason you do it. So this chat's been great. I'm really really happy we've caught up with you.
Yay. How are you all doing? Are you all okay?
we're yeah.
There's still being recorded. Are we still? Yeah, everything's great. Everything's great.
Really good.